An immense valley stretches as far as the eye can see, blanketed in an eerie silence broken only by the whisper of a dry wind. But this isn't just any valley. It's filled with bones. Dry, dusty bones scattered everywhere, bleached white under the scorching sun. The silence is deafening. Not even a bird's song pierces the stillness. If this sounds like the opening scene of a horror movie, I can assure you it's something far more profound. This powerful vision, recorded thousands of years ago, carries a message that could transform your life today. Whether you're facing career setbacks that seem insurmountable or struggling with doubts that shake your very foundation of belief, this ancient story speaks directly to your situation. Take a moment now to think about an area in your life that feels completely hopeless. Maybe it's a dream that seems forever out of reach, or a situation that appears beyond repair. Hold on to that thought as we explore this extraordinary tale together. Imagine being Ezekiel, a prophet far from home, living among his people in exile. The mighty Babylonian Empire has conquered their nation, destroyed their sacred temple, and forced them into captivity. Families are separated, their promised land is now in foreign hands, and their entire world has crumbled around them. Can you feel the weight of despair settling on their shoulders? Many whispered among themselves, "It's over. God has abandoned us, there's no hope left." This wasn't just a physical exile, it was a spiritual crisis of unprecedented proportions. The people of Israel had built their entire identity around being God's chosen people, with their temple as the center of worship. Now, with everything stripped away, they faced the ultimate question: had God truly abandoned them? I wonder, have you ever felt that same crushing weight of abandonment in your darkest moments? It's in this darkest moment that God decides to act, choosing Ezekiel as his messenger. But this won't be an ordinary message delivered through words alone. No, God is about to paint a picture so vivid, so shocking, that it would be remembered and retold for thousands of generations to come. Picture Ezekiel, probably on an ordinary day, not expecting anything extraordinary. Suddenly, he feels the hand of the Lord upon him. That overwhelming sense of divine presence that signals God is about to do something remarkable. Have you ever experienced that feeling? That inexplicable certainty that something big is about to happen, something that will change everything? In the blink of an eye, the Spirit of the Lord transports Ezekiel to a place that seems to have leaped straight from his worst nightmares. Standing there, at the edge of this vast valley, Ezekiel's heart must have pounded against his chest. The sight before him was beyond anything he could have imagined. Bones, thousands, perhaps millions of them, lay scattered across the ground like pieces of a massive, macabre puzzle. These weren't the carefully arranged remains you might find in a burial ground. No, these bones were strewn about haphazardly, as if a great battle had taken place here long ago, and the dead had been left unburied, forgotten by time itself. The sun beat down mercilessly on this desolate scene, and the silence... Oh, the silence was almost tangible. Think about the most isolated place you've ever been, then multiply that solitude tenfold. Not a bird's song, not an insect's hum, not even the whisper of grass in the wind, because nothing grew in this valley of death. Just bones, bleached white by countless seasons under the scorching sun. And then, in this moment of overwhelming desolation, God speaks. His question cuts through the silence like a blade. "Son of man, can these bones live?" What would you have answered? Standing there, surrounded by countless dry, lifeless bones, what would your response have been? It's easy for us, knowing the end of the story, to say, of course. But put yourself in Ezekiel's sandals for a moment. Everything his eyes could see, everything his logical mind could comprehend, screamed that these bones were long past any hope of life. Yet Ezekiel's response reveals the heart of a true prophet. He doesn't fall into the trap of human limitation. He doesn't quickly conclude, "No, it's impossible." Instead, he answers with profound wisdom, "O Lord God, you alone know." In just 5 words, Ezekiel demonstrates a faith that transcends human understanding. He acknowledges that with God, the boundaries between possible and impossible become meaningless. When was the last time you faced a situation that seemed completely hopeless? Did you, like many of us often do, quickly conclude there was no way forward? Or did you, like Ezekiel, leave room for God to work beyond your understanding? The Valley of Dry Bones wasn't just a literal scene before Ezekiel. It was a powerful metaphor for the state of his people. The Israelites in exile were spiritually and emotionally as dry and lifeless as those bones. Their hopes had died, their dreams had crumbled to dust, their faith had withered away. Perhaps right now you're looking at some area of your life that feels just as dead and hopeless. A career that seems to have hit a dead end, a dream that appears impossible to achieve, or a situation that looks beyond repair. But God wasn't done. The question about the bones living wasn't merely rhetorical. It was the prelude to one of the most dramatic demonstrations of divine power ever recorded. God was about to show Ezekiel, and through him show us, that nothing, absolutely nothing, is beyond his power to restore. Then God gives Ezekiel a command that would seem completely absurd to any rational observer. "Prophesy to these bones," he says. "Speak to them." Can you imagine how strange this must have felt? A solitary man, standing in a valley of death, being told to preach to dry bones. If anyone had passed by at that moment, they surely would have thought Ezekiel had lost his mind. But sometimes, what appears foolish to human wisdom becomes the channel for divine power. Sometimes God asks us to do things that make no logical sense, to take steps that seem ridiculous by worldly standards. Think about the dreams God has placed in your heart, the ones that people might laugh at, the ones that seem impossible by every rational measure. Ezekiel doesn't question. He doesn't argue. He doesn't try to explain to God why speaking to bones makes no sense. Instead, he begins to proclaim the words God gives him. "O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord." His voice echoes through the silent valley, carrying a message of impossible hope to an audience that, by all natural laws, couldn't possibly hear or respond. And then, a sound. A rattling noise breaks the deathly silence. The bones begin to move. Can you picture this incredible scene? Thousands upon thousands of bones stirring as if awakening from an ancient sleep. They begin to come together, femur connecting to hip bone, vertebrae stacking one upon another, ribs curving to form protective cages. It's like watching creation itself in fast forward. The noise must have been overwhelming. A vast symphony of clicking and clacking as bone sought bone across the valley floor. Each piece finding its perfect match, each skeleton reconstructing itself with supernatural precision. This wasn't just random movement. This was divine orchestration on a massive scale. But bones alone don't make a living being. Watch what happens next. Sinews appear, wrapping around the bones like living rope. Muscles begin to form, layer upon layer of strength and flexibility covering the frameworks. Skin grows over it all, transforming bare anatomy into recognizable human forms. Yet even now, something crucial is missing. These bodies, though perfectly formed, lie still. They are complete but lifeless, like beautifully crafted statues. There's no breath, no spirit, no life. Isn't this sometimes how we feel? We might have everything in place externally, the right education, the right job, the right connections, but something vital is still missing. This is when God commands Ezekiel to prophesy again, but this time not to the bones. Now he must call to the breath, to the spirit, to the very essence of life itself. "Come from the 4 winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain that they may live." And as Ezekiel speaks these words, something extraordinary happens. The breath enters these bodies, and suddenly, life. Thousands upon thousands of people stand up, an exceeding great army, where moments before there had been only dry bones and death. What we've just witnessed isn't just a story about God's power to bring physical life from death. It's a profound message about hope, restoration, and divine possibilities that speaks directly into our lives today. When God showed Ezekiel this vision, he wasn't just giving him a supernatural spectacle. He was painting a picture of what he can do in any situation that seems hopelessly dead. Think about what makes a situation seem truly hopeless. Usually, it's not just that things are difficult, it's that we can see no possible way forward. Like those dry bones scattered across the valley floor, all signs of life have long since departed. Maybe it's a career that seems to have hit a dead end. Perhaps it's a dream that you've had to bury because reality seemed too harsh. Or it could be your faith itself, once vibrant and alive, now feeling dry and lifeless. The people of Israel were in exactly such a place. Their nation destroyed, their temple, the very center of their worship and identity, reduced to rubble, their people scattered in exile. They had declared their situation hopeless. Our bones are dried up, our hope is lost, we are completely cut off. Have you ever felt like that? Like you're not just facing a difficult situation, but one that's completely beyond hope? But God's message through this vision is clear. Nothing is beyond his power to restore. Notice how the restoration happened. It wasn't instantaneous. First the bones came together, then the sinews and flesh appeared, and finally the breath of life entered. God often works this way in our lives too. Restoration usually comes in stages, each step building on the previous one. You might be at any point in this process right now. Maybe you're still at the dry bones stage where nothing seems to be moving, or perhaps you're seeing the first signs of things coming together, but life still seems far away. The key is to remember that God isn't finished yet. Just as Ezekiel had to keep prophesying at each stage, we need to keep believing, keep moving forward, keep declaring God's promises even when we can't yet see the final outcome. But there's something else crucial in this story: the role of speaking forth life. God could have restored those bones with a simple thought, but he chose to have Ezekiel speak to them. Your words, when aligned with God's purposes, have power. What are you speaking over the dead situations in your life? Are you declaring what you see, the dryness, the hopelessness? Or are you like Ezekiel, willing to speak life even when everything around you speaks death? The story of Ezekiel and the Valley of Dry Bones remains one of the most powerful demonstrations of God's ability to bring life from death, hope from despair, and restoration from ruin. As we've seen, this ancient vision isn't just a historical account. It's a living message that speaks directly to whatever situation you're facing today. Remember, those bones didn't just come alive. They became an exceedingly great army. God didn't just restore what was lost. He transformed it into something even more powerful. He can do the same in your life. That career setback? It might be the preparation for something greater. That seemingly dead dream? Perhaps it's just waiting for the breath of new life. The choice now lies with you. Will you, like Ezekiel, stand in your valley of dry bones and dare to believe in restoration? Will you speak life into situations that seem hopeless? Will you trust that God isn't finished with your story yet? As we end our time together, take a moment to reflect on what this means for your own life. If this message has touched something deep within you, if it's given you a new perspective on your challenges, I invite you to join our community. Like this video if it resonated with you. Share it with someone who might need this message of hope today. If you found value in these insights, hit that thanks button below. And don't forget to subscribe. There are more powerful stories and life-changing truths waiting to be explored together. Until next time, remember, no situation is too dead for God to breathe new life into it. Your valley of dry bones might just be the setting for your next miracle.